What's going on, everybody? My name is Mark and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be making the Apricorn Poké Ball from Pokémon Legends Arceus. This game hit stores on January 28th of 2022 and I'm recording this audio on 2/25/2022, so not even a month after its initial release. That being said, for those viewers that are not yet familiar with the Apricorn Poké Ball, this variation is described as being made from a hollowed out apricorn. And apricorns are described as a special type of fruit that are native within the Johto region that appears similar to that of the more common berries, and are only encountered typically in the games centered within that region. Now that I've provided a little bit of background information on what exactly this Apricorn Poké Ball is, I would also like to state that, like in my other videos, I've provided all of the resources that I used on this project in the description below, because as this video may serve as a form of entertainment to many viewers, for those that are watching to use this video as a tutorial, one of my goals in every video is to empower everybody to get out there, make some kick-ass props, and then show it off to your friends, family, and fellow cosplayers. Now, while we continue to take a closer look at these 3D prints shortly after they came off of my 3D printer, I would like to highlight my favorite aspect of this model's design, which is the insert that will go into the inside of the ball, making this a perfect storage container for Nintendo Switch cartridges. While keeping that in mind, even if you were to make this and never take it to a convention, you'd still end up with a really cool display item that could house your video games. Now, to kick things off like I would in any of my other videos, I start off by sanding down all layer lines with 80 grit sandpaper. In terms of roughness, 80 grit sandpaper is exceptionally coarse, which makes it perfect for sanding through PLA plastic. Alternately, if you wanted to go lower, you could also go down to 60 grit sandpaper, which would work as well. Either way, whichever grade of sandpaper you choose to utilize, the goal in this step is to not completely remove layer lines just yet, but rather to dull them as much as possible. For that matter, layer lines are never actually completely removed, as they're only filled in and covered up with other materials. Now, moving on, the one section of this ball that does not snap together should just be glued, and any kind of super glue is fine. Particularly, my super glue of choice is Loctite super glue with gel control. And that brings us to the switch card insert, which I recommend sanding the outside of and then making sure that it fits flush to the inside of the half of the model that it's supposed to go into. Once you've assembled that part, you can go ahead and move on to the next step, which is assembling the hinge. Now, the pin that I'm showing you in this clip is actually a trim nail that I cut the head off of and then trimmed to the appropriate length so it would fit perfectly inside of the hinge. Truthfully, I will say that this is going to take some finagling, as the original runtime of this clip of me assembling the hinge was around 10 minutes long. In a continued effort to cover up layer lines, I recommend using a 2-in-1 Sandable filler primer. And for best results, wait 2 to 4 hours before dry sanding per manufacturer recommendations. Moving on, I recommend using 320 grit sandpaper, as it's perfect for light sanding between coats of finish. This is a stage that you can stay at until you are completely satisfied with the overall smoothness of your model. In my case, I used 2 coats of primer, and then upon the second coat of primer, I sanded again with 320 grit sandpaper, and then followed up with gloss white spray paint. I chose gloss white spray paint because this is something that is going to directly affect how the results of the next stage in this process turn out. Essentially, when you apply graphite powder to a surface, the brighter the paint is, the brighter the finish will be. And I wanted this to definitely shine, so I used white as a base coat as opposed to using a gray primer. This material is very messy, so I do recommend 3 things. First would be to wear proper breathing protection because you don't want to coat the inside of your lungs with graphite powder. 2, wrap your workstation in plastic, and 3, wear a pair of gloves. This next step is something that is not completely necessary, but if you choose to do so, I recommend using a high gloss clear coat to seal up the graphite layer. If you wanted to skip that step completely, you could and go straight into using a red tint. In this case, I used Dupli-Color Metal Cast Red. With some added transparency, this next step is one that I approached with very little confidence in my own abilities. But essentially what I'm trying to do is sketch a pattern that is reminiscent of a wood grain pattern on the bottom half of this ball, as that is how it's drawn in any of the pictures that I've seen thus far. In tandem with drawing this wood grain pattern, I also decided to etch this into the bottom half of the ball with a straight pick. By including this added texture, I felt like this would improve the overall sense of realism in the final product. As a side note, I am highly interested in the opinions of my audience. Therefore, it is greatly appreciated if you would go to the comment section below after the video and let me know what you think about how this wood grain pattern turned out. I also make it a point to say that in every video I am open to constructive and destructive criticism. While keeping that in mind, if you want to completely go Gordon Ramsay or Simon Cowell on me, that is your prerogative, as I will not be offended. And in closing on that note, the only thing that harsh criticism is going to do is motivate me to find new ways to improve my own abilities. So, that being said, have at it. Now, moving on, we can go ahead and start painting the bottom half of the Pokeball. To begin, the type of paint that I'm using is acrylic, and the type of brush that I'm using is a round brush. By using a round brush, what I'm accomplishing is unevenly spreading the paint across the bottom half of the ball. The reason for this is because once this uneven coat of paint dries, it is going to provide an additional layer of texture in the final finish. And once that has an opportunity to dry, go ahead and start filling in the etchings from earlier with brown acrylic paint. Now with this step, don't worry about adding too much paint at once, because once you put the paint into those grooves, then you're going to wipe away the excess along the grain pattern of the ball. Also keep in mind that you do want to leave residual brown outside of those grooves. By doing this, you're adding an additional layer of texture that will show up in the final finish. And once you've given the acrylic paint an opportunity to completely dry, go ahead and spray the ball down one more time with high gloss clear coat. On a side note, if you are going to handle this after clear coating it, keep in mind that you should probably wait anywhere from 48 to 72 hours before handling. The reason for that is that during this period of time, the clear coat is going to be malleable. If you were to pick this up before it was completely dried, hypothetically speaking, you would run the risk of leaving your fingerprint impressions behind in the finish. And as this video begins to reach its inevitable end, I'll go ahead and give everybody a close-up of the entire Pokeball, including the bottom section, and let me know in the comment section below what you think about that wood grain pattern and whether or not I nailed it. Also, if there are any props that you want to see me make, let me know in the comment section below, as I'm always willing to try to take a detour and make whatever it is that you requested. And that, in a nutshell, is my process for making the Apricorn Poké Ball from Pokémon Legends Arceus. Just be sure to stay tuned for my next video, where I make clear colored resin casted Pokeballs with the original Kanto starters in the center of them. And also, just as a friendly reminder, if you truly liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and then hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I publish new content. I hope to see everybody here next time, and as always, thanks for watching.